Good morning, world of YouTube. Let's look at the next section of the Bhagavatam, part 2. Hopefully we won't have any break in our connection today. So today we're going to learn about what I call the evolution of the Proto-Universe. What does proto mean? Proto is like prototype, like the initial thing before the thing is really the thing that you know. So the universe, you can divide it into existing in 3 stages. One is the potential state where it's not really manifest at all. It's destroyed and in a unmanifest or just potential energetic state. And then there's the one that we're familiar with now, where things are fully manifest. And then there's something in between, which is like the embryo, you could say, maybe the embryo of the universe. Hi, everybody. So, what we already heard so far, just to refresh your memory, Narada asked Brahma, what's the universe made of? What's it founded on? How is it created and maintained and destroyed? Brahma says, it's founded on Narayan, the original conscious entity. The original conscious entity manifests consciousness, conscious beings, and objects to be conscious of. That's the jiva and the dravya. And then allows or facilitates the interaction between consciousness and its objects by these other 3 entities, which are known as Swabhava, Kala, and Karma, which are the individual nature of the consciousness. That's the Swabhava, and then its ability to act upon the objects is Karma, and then Kala, time, which allows things to transpire and change. And then he said that their creation of these objects and the tools to interact with them is done through 3 powers which are inherent in the objects, or the power, the Dravya Shakti, or the power that produces objects, has 3 distinct qualities to it. The quality is called a guna. It's got the quality of sattva, the quality of rajas, and the quality of tamas. The sattva allows it to be perceived by consciousness. So sattva allows it to exist and be something that consciousness can perceive. Rajas allows it to become real and like grow. And tamas, was that what he said? Let me see what he said. Rajas makes it inspiring. It gives the sense of attachment to it, and tamas gives it its solidity. But he's going to explain more about this. So he's going to explain how you get these 5. Altogether now you have actually 8. You have 5 basic things, and then these 3 qualities of one of those 5. So it's like if you had a recipe with like 7 or 8 ingredients. How do these 5 ingredients interact with these other 3 things to make the cupcake? That's what Brahma's going to explain now. How does consciousness and objects and time and activity and psychology, how does it interact with the 3 qualities of nature to produce the Proto-Universe, which is all the elements that are involved in creating the universe that we know. So you get that there's three levels to the creation here. The Vedas are saying there's a fully manifest creation, then there's a proto-creation, which has got all of the building blocks required for that creation, and then there's a pre-created state. So Narada wants to know more details about how the 3 qualities interact with the 5 principles to create the world of objects. That's what that sentence summarizes. And let me see what I got here. Brahma previously explained that the principal catalyst of evolution is consciousness, jiva. So because there's time involved, then everything about the universe coming into creation is a type of evolution. And it's not because I live in the 21st century and I'm influenced by Darwinism or something, because this is the way that the Vedas describe it. Everything is evolving as a result of time moving causes to effects. And so the Vedas describe the universe coming into being in an evolutionary process. But the driving principle, the original driving principle of that evolutionary process is consciousness, which has will and therefore initiates action and causes things to change. So Brahma had previously explained that the principal catalyst of evolution is consciousness, or jiva. Consciousness develops specific inclinations and desires, that's swabhava. That's its psychology, its individual nature. The endeavor to fulfill these desires causes evolution to eventually produce the world of objects. So consciousness having some specific desires is what causes it to interact with reality in such a way that reality produces some specific tangible shapes and forms and experienceable things. Now Brahma further explained that time, kala, is the agent of change. So it facilitates evolution in the three qualities, guna. So time is the agent of change. It's like water is the basis for a potion, or most medicines or things. Most everything is based on water, and then you add things into water, and the water allows them to combine, etc. So time is like that. Time is like this underlying ingredient that everything else requires to interact with in order for any change to take place. So time is the agent. Clarity is the first quality. Clarity, or sattva guna, is the first quality to respond to the combined stimulus of time and desire. So in a couple of minutes I'm going to put a graphic on the screen so that you can more easily visualize what he's saying. Right? But I don't want to put it up too early, because then you'll just get lost in all the details that I haven't already mentioned. So try to visualize it first, and then later I'll give you a visual aid. Abhishek has a question. What's the Vedic idea of evolution? Just listen, you'll hear it. Because there's no natural selection involved. They're in the spiritual world. What drives the evolution? The evolution is consciousness. Consciousness wants to experience things. So consciousness has an inherent desire. Desire causes action. Action causes change. Change is evolution. So the first, Brahma says, these three qualities of Dravya Shakti, the three qualities of the potential for the external world, they respond to consciousness with different speed. The sattva is the quickest, the rajas is the next, and tamas is the last, is the slowest, because of the nature of what those energies are. So the first thing in the world that responds to the desire of consciousness is sattva. It responds to the combined stimuli of time and desire first, and so it evolves into something which is pretty abstract, and you might not know. It's called the primeval universe, which you might think of as a singularity. It's called the Mahat Tattva in Sanskrit. The Mahat Tattva is essentially a blueprint of destined cause and effects. So the Mahat Tattva is basically the seed form of everything that the universe can be. So in modern cosmology, they have the idea of Mahat Tattva pretty close. They're pretty close to that idea of Mahat Tattva when they talk about singularity at the Big Bang. So what the Vedas is saying here is that thing that the scientists are talking about, singularity, that's produced by the sattva gun interacting with consciousness's desire to have something to experience. The quality of passion, or Rajaguna, is the next to respond. So Sattva Guna responds first, and then Rajaguna responds. Now, Sattva Guna responds directly to the influence of the conscious swabhava and kala, right? Consciousness directly affects sattva guna, and that produces something called mahatattva. Rajaguna then comes, but by the time Rajaguna comes to interact with the scenario, mahatattva already exists, so it interacts with mahatattva. And it causes, when Rajaguna interacts with mahatattva, it causes the evolution of an element which is it's more famous or well known than mahatattva. It's called ahankara. I know maybe it was Abhishek had a question about where ahankara fits in here. So ahankara is the evolution from swabhava interacting with sattva guna to produce mahatattva, and then mahatattva interacting with rajaguna. So ahankara is actually a product from rajaguna. That's why it has the quality of ambition to it. The basic nature of ahankara is the sense of, I am this person with these, like, it's not just ego. It gets translated as ego, but it's actually the concept of individualistic doership is ahamkara. Look at the word. If you know any Sanskrit at all, you can see that it says kar, which is the basis for the word karma and activity. This is the word action. So ahankara means I do. Some people say it means it's the thing that creates an I, but that's not true, because jiva, or consciousness itself, is ahamartha, is the meaning of the word I. So I already exists in consciousness itself. It's not created by the Rajaguna. What Rajaguna does is it creates a sense of, I want to do this. I want to do something. I want to do X. And that's based on this sense that because I am X, therefore I want X. Like, you don't find boys going and wanting to buy, typically you don't find boys wanting to buy sparkly hair clips and bracelets and everything because they think I'm a boy. I want to buy a truck. So it's how the identity and the basic desire is wrapped into one little package is ahankara. It's the sense of how your desires define who you are. That's ahankara. So that's what happened. That the ability for that to exist is a part of the universe itself. The ability for people to have that sense of being defined by their ambitions is one of the elements in the universe. It's a mental thing. You won't see it with a telescope or a microscope, but it's something that exists in the mental world. And that has to evolve first before anything else can evolve, except for mahatattva, which is the blueprint for it. Blue Water Pines says that my stream is always buffering. Is that true for everybody? If it's true for everybody, then I can change some settings. Try to change some settings. Okay, so the quality of passion is the next to respond. It interacts with the primeval universe, causing it to evolve. Ego, or ahankara. Ego allows consciousness to conceive of itself as an independent, self-initiating doer. That's what ahankara is. The sense of ego is that I am an independent doer. I want this for me. That's what evolves initially in the universe. Maybe I'll make settings lower next time or something. Sorry about the buffering. But it might just be because for the people who it's buffering for, maybe you don't have a good connection. I don't know. Let's get back to this. Ego allows consciousness to conceive of itself. Oh, let's see, somebody has a question. How necessary is it that we achieve our desires in order to evolve? It's pretty necessary. But It's pretty necessary, but this is actually quite a different topic. That's why the Vedic culture is organized around having people fulfill their desires, but you have to be careful. It has to be done carefully. It's like administering medicine. You can't just take all the medicine in one day, or you can't just dedicate yourself only to medicine. So you have to actually go carefully about. It's a side-by-side process of discipline, indulgence, and acquisition of increased knowledge, so that your desires can become more fruitful, or more in harmony with who and what you really are. Yeah, you'll always come back while you have, as long as you have ahankar, you don't leave the system. Ahankar is the basic element which has really tied the jiva, the consciousness, into the objects, the world of objects. I don't know. I don't want to answer questions that are too far off topic. Do you think we are most afraid of what we desire most? Yeah, of course, because if you're afraid of not getting it. So every emotion has two sides. Okay, so you got consciousness, its desires or its swabhava mixed with time to act upon the primordial reality called Dravya Shakti, and that causes Mahatattva, which is kind of like a blueprint or a potential for everything else. And that Mahatattva is a result of it interacting with Sattva. And then Rajaguna, when Rajaguna interacts with that blueprint, it produces a Hamkara, which is the thing that enables us to have our separate sense of identity and ambition. Then what comes next? Then the quality of darkness. Now the quality of darkness interacts with ego. So the third quality is going to come up now. First quality was sattva. It came and interacted directly with the swabhava to produce mahatattva. Then rajaguna came and it interacted with the mahatattva to produce ahankara. Now tamaguna comes and it interacts with ahamkara. And what does it produce? It evolves the power to create tangible elements. It evolves something called Dravya Shakti. So I guess we shouldn't call Prakriti, the whole thing, Dravya Shakti, because here it's using the word Dravya Shakti as the power to produce objects. The quality of darkness interacts with ego, because the quality of darkness means the ability to make opaque things, to create tangible elements. Ego also interacts with the other two elements, and they come in a cycle. So the cycle is sattva, rajas, tamas. They move in that speed. So sattva interacts with swabhava, and then rajas interacts with mahatattva, and then tamas interacts with ahankara. And then sattva is going to come again and interact with ahankara, and then rajas is going to come and interact with ahankara. I'm about to put this on the screen so you can see it, and then we will review it again. So ego also interacts with the quality of clarity to evolve the power to perceive tangible things, which is known as Jnana Shakti, and ego also interacts with the quality of passion to evolve the power to manipulate tangible things, Kriya Shakti. Tamas doesn't mean optic, it means opaque. Like sattva is transparent, rajas is translucent, and tamas is opaque. Alright, so let's give you a little visual aid. Make the video big if you can enlarge it. So you can see here, let me move over a little bit. You can see here, you start at the top. If you look at the things that are colored in gray, those are the 5 primordial elements. You got jiva in the circle, kala as the diamond, swabhava as like the rounded rectangle, and then you got karma as one rectangle, and dravya as another one. Those are the 5 primordial things in the universe, which is consciousness, psychology, time, action, and object. Now it's going to the diagram shows how the three qualities interact with these. So up at the top, I don't know if you can see you can't see a cursor, so up at the top of the karma square, you can see a dotted line rectangle which says sattva guna, or clarity, in it. So the jiva is exerting its will on the world. Consciousness is exerting will on the world, and kala is assisting that to have an effect. And the first thing that can touch in the world is sattva guna, because that's what sattva guna is. It's the gateway to consciousness. And when it touches sattva guna, it produces this thing called mahatattva, which is basically like the collection. It's like the way that consciousness interfaces. It's just like the connection between consciousness and matter, which is the blueprint, or the seed, the gateway for everything else to happen. Then that connection then touches rajaguna for the first time, which is the passionate, creative energy in nature. When that happens, consciousness can exhibit its passions. So it gets ahankara, feelings that I want to do stuff, and I want to be this. Then that passionate type of ego interacts with tamaguna first. So you can see tamaguna is in the dotted rectangle towards the right, towards the top. So it's sequentially going down. When ahankara is interacted with by tamaguna, then the evolute from that interaction is called dravya shakti. Dravya shakti means the power, the potential to make things, to make objects. Then it's going to interact with the other two elements first. Again, so ahankara then interacts with sattva guna next, and that produces something called jnana shakti, which is the power to perceive objects, and then it interacts with rajaguna, which creates kriya shakti, the power to manipulate objects. So thus the universe evolves these three essential powers, dravya, jnana, and kriya, from tamaguna, sattvaguna, and rajaguna respectively. These three powers in the universe are the basis for everything. Dravya Shakti is the power to make things, Jnana Shakti is the power to experience those things, and Kriya Shakti is the power to change those things, manipulate those things, interact with those things. And that's the basis of everything that's going on in the universe, whether it's on a person-to-person level, or a person-to-object level, or an object-to-object level. Like even on an object-to-object level, an atom of hydrogen can recognize an atom of oxygen. So it has Jnana Shakti in it. And the formation of the electrons into that form is the Dravya Shakti. This Dravya Shakti is what produces an oxygen molecule and a hydrogen molecule. Sattvaguna is what allows them to recognize each other. And Rajaguna is the power that they have to bind. So even down on a molecular level, it's these three powers. And even all the way up to our level, this is what's going on with us. We can see a cookie. There can be a cookie, that's Dravya Shakti. We can see it and smell it. That's Jnana Shakti. And Kriya Shakti, we can grab it, we can pick it up, we can put it in our mouth. That's the ability to interact with it. Any questions? He likes Rajaguna most of all. Most people do. Rajaguna is the basic quality for humans. Abhishek asks, tamas is often linked to inaction. Is that accurate? If yes, how can inaction produce everything? Tamas is to solidity. That's why it's opaque. Light doesn't pass through it, and that's why it produces solid things. When you become... Solidity is the least active thing, right? Solid objects have the least energy. The liquid objects, they have more energy, so the molecules spread more, and the gaseous objects, they have more. So the way that tamas affects our psychology is to make it a little slower and thicker. So it is accurate that tamas is linked to inaction. It's not the gunas that are doing anything, by the way. It's the consciousness of the jiva combined with the power of time that's doing things with these three gunas. It's like if you have a soup and you Yeah, remember those experiments where they would have like a proto soup of some proto atmosphere, and they would zap it with electricity and see what happens, see if they could create life or organic compounds. So it's like that. The soup, the soupy atmosphere here is the three gunas, and then the conscious will coming in married with kala is the zap. And then the little organic compounds that get filled as that get created as a result of that zap are these things: Mahatattva, Ahankar, etc. Is there a more spiritual aspect of tamas, such as its relation to Shiva? I don't know how you want to get more spiritual or less spiritual than this. I don't know how to evaluate more or less spiritual. This is how consciousness creates reality. I don't know how that's could be more spiritual, or how it is less spiritual, could be less spiritual. I don't get it. This, by the way, is the same. This is the same way that consciousness would work in any scenario. Like in any scenario, even for the production of forms and things to interact with Bhagavan, it's going to be produced in this way. All right. Any other questions? There's another one coming up. Let me take a picture of this just to give you a heads up of what we can discuss tomorrow or on Monday. Let me put this someplace where I won't lose it, and then name it something. Oh, one second. I shouldn't really be doing this while I'm live, but let me do this. Meanwhile, if you have any questions. We're going to get a new image here. I just gotta find the... Oh, I shouldn't have called it image, but... Boom. Alright, I see we got one question. Let's see what it is. Is all this necessary so that we can experience bhakti for the all-attractive one? This actually is necessary so that... Whoops, didn't want to show that. One sec. This is necessary so that consciousness can do what it wants to do, which is experience things. Whether it's experiencing bhakti or experiencing kama, its own selfish enjoyment, this would be necessary. This is what consciousness does in order to fully manifest its existence. Floating wisdom wants to know if Guru is Jivatma. Yeah, Guru is Jiva, consciousness. Is drinking alcohol tamasic or rajasic? Intoxicants are tamasic in their effect on the human psychology. Except for some, maybe the stimulants are rajasic. Some things are rajasic, some things are different kinds of intoxicants have different natures, qualities to them. Alcohol is tamasic. Anything which is a relaxant is tamasic. Sleep is also tamasic. So that's not just a argument against alcohol in and of itself. Not that I'm promoting alcohol, but just so that you don't get negative. You shouldn't be negative about tamasic things. You need tamas, rajas, and sattva in the correct balance. Alright, so let me show you now this other image to show you what's going to happen next. What's going to happen next in this conversation is you still haven't really gotten an explanation of the universe that you know. Right? all that you have now is an explanation of how you're able to have independent desires, that's a Hamkar, and how you're able to have the ability to produce objects, like produce a body, and perceive objects, like perceive your body, and manipulate objects, like move your body around. But you have no explanation so far of like why there's a piece of wood in front of your face, or why there's rocks, what they are, or what's the air. So what's going to happen next is Nar's going to ask for that. How do these basic Shaktis, Dravya, Jnana, and Kriya, the power of objects, the power of perception, and the power of action, how do those three basic powers generate the world that we know? So Brahma's going to explain the evolutionary process for that, and it's going to look something like this. Let me give you this picture. That's what we'll go over in more detail on Monday, an explanation of this. So you see, it's got Dravya Shakti is on the left side, Jnana Shakti, which is comprehension, and Kriya Shakti. The Dravya Shakti is going to produce the proto-objects, which are the 5 primordial objects. The Kriya Shakti is going to produce the proto-senses, which is 10 actually. And then the Jnana Shakti is going to produce perceivable qualities, because that's what it does. It's the power of perception. So the power of objects is going to produce the 5 building blocks of all objects. And the power of action, Kriya Shakti, is going to produce the 5 ways of perceiving them and the 5 ways of interacting with them. And then Jnana Shakti is going to produce 10 perceptions for those. So for example, Jnana Shakti will produce the mind, Kriya Shakti will produce the intellect. The intellect is gonna, we'll go over this, but you're gonna get like the sense of hearing can perceive dimensions which reveal the quality of sound, which is the quality of space. The sense of feeling can perceive wind or air or movement. Wind is basically the movement of particles, which enables the sense of touch, which is the movement or the change in pressure of things. And then that's connected with the fundamental building block of air. So it's going to go through all these, and it's going to explain all this. That's what we'll start working on Monday. I'm looking forward to that, because this is cool, detailed stuff. All right. So I see there's no more questions, so I think we will sign off. Oh wait, we got these guys. We got one question here. There's these nakshatras which have gunas and permutations. How can we make sense of the different permutations, especially which have 3? That's all bullshit, as far as I know. I remember encountering that concept that the nakshatras have these 3 layers of gunas to them. God, I remember encountering it in 2008, and I had started studying in 2007. So I encountered it early on. I think maybe the place where I encountered it was Dennis Harness's book on nakshatras. And I think the origin for that was some other guy who published something on the internet, and when I tried to contact him about where he got this idea from, I either couldn't get in contact with him, or he wouldn't answer, or he couldn't answer. So I've never found a reputable source for the idea that there's these gunas that occur in a pattern. And I just want to say that I did a recent video on this channel about the nakshatra yogatars and how they're related to the ecliptic spatially, and how that spatial relationship, like where is this star in relation east, west, north, south to the ecliptic? It tells you a lot about why a certain god dwells in that star, and therefore why that god has, why that star's nakshatra has the qualities that it has. There's not patterns in it like in the zodiac where everything is really mathematical and patterned, because it's all based on this even movement of the sun. The zodiac is based on all this even movement of the sun, which is practically constantly the same. But the nakshatra isn't based on that. The nakshatras are based on these stars that are all over the place. And so, just in general, when you find people explaining nakshatras in ways that have clear patterns, like first 9 are like this, next 9 are like that, next 9 are like that. Within that first 9, the first 3 are like this, the next 3 are like this, the next 3 are like this. And within those 3, the first one is like this, the second one is like that. That's the Rajaguna thing. The first 9 nakshatras, I guess, tamas, sattva, the next 3 rajas, the next 3 tamas. Then within the first any group, the first 3 of that group are sattva, and the next 3 are rajas, the next 3 are tamas. Then within each one of those groups, the first one is sattva, the next one is rajas, the next one is tamas. Whenever you see patterns that are that clean like that, be suspicious, because that's not what the nakshatras really are. And then if you do some investigation that I did, you won't find shastric support for it. Doesn't mean that the nakshatras don't express certain qualities. Like there's a lot of sattva in certain nakshatras. There's a lot of rajas in other nakshatras. A lot of tamas in other nakshatras. But it's not in a clear pattern. Do the gunas described to the planets ever change? I don't think so. Why would they change? The planet is always the planet. It always has the same qualities. So guna is ascribed to a planet because of the way the planet looks in the sky and the way it acts in the sky. As long as that doesn't change, then how would the guna that it typifies change? Alright guys, let's have a relaxing weekend, refresh, try to digest everything that you got through the week with Bhagavatam, and then we'll embark on this adventure to see how Jnana Shakti, Dravya Shakti, and Kriya Shakti produces the things that actually make our world and our bodies. Mars is tamasic because of anger. And it's angry because it's red. Okay guys. Ciao.